This is the video answer explanations for the grammar diagnostic test, and we're going to start with numbers 1 through 10. 1. Students who major in chemistry is able to get a good job after college. So you might be able to hear it, but it seems there's some issue with the word is. Now this is a verb, so the question is, what is the subject? Well, you might think, because chemistry is next to it, which is a noun, that chemistry might be the subject, but no, not really, right? The subject is the students, right? It is the students who major in chemistry are able to get a good job after college. So we can go ahead and change this to are, and this is an example of subject-verb agreement error. Number 2, the representative of the people are responsible for listening to the concerns of the public. So again, same kind of issue. We look at this word are, and we say, what is the subject? Now the subject is not people. Whenever we have a prepositional phrase, it's not going to be the subject. The subject is the representative, right? The representative of the people. This is singular, whereas the verb is plural, so we want to change this so that it agrees. So this can become is. This is another example of subject-verb agreement. Each student who is taking classes are required to buy textbooks. Okay, so let's see. We have each student who is taking classes. So here is a singular noun, right? Whenever you see each, remember each is singular. Are required? Well, wait a minute. No, this is another subject-verb agreement error because we need this to be is. Each student is required, right? Each is singular, therefore the verb must be singular. Either Mary or John are responsible for this disaster. This one's a bit trickier, not something you see too often on the SAT, but it is important to know just in case it does. We have either or, and that's fine. And then we have two nouns, Mary or John. But when we have two nouns like this connected with an or, especially when they're both singular, we want to take a singular verb. So this is another subject-verb agreement error, and we want this to be is. After the holidays have passed and the buying season ends, is the newly formed committee and the CEO going to decide which departments get cut and which stay? So this is an awkward sounding sentence because we have something called inverted word order. Normally, in a sentence, the subject comes first and then the verb and then the completion of the sentence. But here, we actually have the subject, which is, well, we'll talk about that in a second, comes after the verb. Right, is the verb of the sentence, and the subject comes after it. This beginning part is actually a prepositional phrase. It's giving us information when this action is occurring. So we can kind of ignore this, and we need to look in this example for what the subject is coming after the verb. So we see, after the holidays have passed, blah, 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 is the newly formed committee. So we might think it's okay because it's newly formed committee, but then we see end. So this is a compound noun. The newly formed committee and the CEO. So when it's compound with connected with an end, it's got to be plural, which means the verb has got to be plural, which means this should actually be are. So it's a weird sounding sentence because of that inverted word order, but it does come up occasionally on the SAT. So just be aware that the sentence isn't wrong because it sounds weird. It's wrong because of the way the subject-verb agreement is set up. So this is another SVA. While Bobby looked for his car keys. Notice this is not a complete sentence, right? This is a fragment. There's no main clause, independent clause here. It's just a subordinate or dependent clause that's just hanging without anything. Even though we do have a main verb, this while, which is a subordinating conjunction, is making the entire sentence subordinate or dependent. So we need something to complete this thought. So you can really add any sentence you like over here. The example I have in the answer key is, while Bobby looked for his car keys, I sat on the front porch waiting for him. We just need some sort of independent clause to complete the sentence and get rid of the fragment. When the huge explosion echoed through the valley, everyone looking to see where it came from. So we might think, well, what is this looking doing here? We've got another subordinate clause, dependent clause, that's no problem. And then we've got an independent clause to finish it up. Or do we? Well, here, the main issue is we don't have a main verb. Right? Looking is a participle or a gerund, depending on how it's being used, but ing verbs can never be main verbs. So we need to something like everyone looked. Right? We need a main verb of some kind. So this is another fragment error. So with fragments, always be aware of the presence or lack of presence of a main verb. The new player wanted to prove his value to the team, but sitting on the bench for nearly the entire season. Same kind of thing here. Here we have what's called a compound predicate, because we've got two actions that are linked together, connected to this new player. He wanted to prove his value to the team, but sat on the bench, right? This sitting is another, again, ing, verbal. We don't need that. We need a main verb, so we can change that to sat, and everything works out okay. This is another frag. Bill Gates, the founder of Microsoft, and now has transitioned into a life of philanthropy. So wait a minute. We have our subject, then we've got what's called an appositive phrase, which is basically just renaming or describing the subject or the noun. So that's no problem. But then suddenly we have a comma and then we have end. But there's no main clause here, right? This is just this subject just hanging here without a predicate, right? So we need something to either complete the sentence. We could add more. We can add another complete sentence here. Or one thing we could do is get rid of the end. And that solves the problem because now this becomes the main sentence that completes the first part. So again, this is another fragment. In an effort to clean up the lake, a new committee created by a joint commission. So we might think we're okay because this looks like a complete sentence, right? We've got a subordinate phrase right here, and then we have what looks to be an independent clause here, but is it? A new committee created by a joint commission. So notice we have a subject kind of thing, and then we have this verb created, but it's not being used correctly, right? A new committee, one way to fix it would be was created. We need an actual main verb to complete the sentence. Right now, again, we've got a fragment. Right? A new committee was created by a joint commission. Or you can complete the sentence by adding, maybe a part at the end, right? A new committee created by a joint commission met to decide what to do about the lake, right? It's something to complete the thought. Either way, we just need a main independent clause because as written, this is not an independent clause. This is just a noun phrase. It's one long phrase that's basically giving us the noun, but all we need is either add a main verb here or add something at the end to complete the sentence.